What's up, everyone? So this is a very special edition of the V Spot. I thought with everything going on, we should not only. I mean, normally here on the V Spot, I talk mostly about sports and athletics, and we do mix a little bit of pop culture in there as well. But for my focus for today's episode, I have an amazing woman that I wanted to bring on to talk about this. Me and her have honestly throughout the years we've talked about this kind of stuff, exact same stuff that is happening, that you see in the media down in the States. That's happening here in our own backyard as well. So Sid, I want to bring you in, and I just want to talk. I mean, there are a few topics I want to touch on because that is what I find is important. But this is going to be super chill. This is going to be fun's not the right word, but it's going to be super chill and relaxed. So give me 1 second. I'm going to add Sydney in here.
But this is going to be super chill. This is going to be, fun's not the right word, but it's going to be super chill and relaxed. So give me 1 second. I'm going to add Sydney in here.
It's loading. All right, Sid, hey. How are you?
I'm blessed. How about you?
I'm good. Is it echoing on your end?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, give me 1 second. What about now?
Yeah, it is. There you go. Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, perfect.
Okay, perfect.
You sound beautiful. I sound good? Okay, cool. Everyone, so welcome Sydney to the V-Spot. This special edition, the V-Spot Speaks Up. We are going to be talking about what is happening, what is going on, why is it going on, and what can we do to fix it. So the first thing, really, you and we met probably like 5 years ago, somewhere around, and we met through basketball. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the basketball world right now that I personally don't agree with. I don't think the season should start, and they did get the go-ahead a couple days ago, that it could go, and I believe, what is it,
22 teams?
Yeah, so it's 22 teams. So it's 13 teams on the West, and then there's 9 teams on the East. So they're going to be playing at the ESPN complex in Orlando.
What are your thoughts?
I'm not gonna lie. I don't think it's appropriate. Appropriate may not be the best.
But I mean, how beautiful would it be for them to say, you wanna know what? Pandemic kind of put a wrench in our season, and now all these protests are happening around the world, not even North America. Paris, they're having some George Floyd protests. Down in New Zealand, they're having them. So this is a global issue. I don't think it's appropriate to come back. I think they should put all their time, effort, and money into helping solve this. What are your thoughts on resuming the season?
Well, at the end of the day, the NBA is a money-making business, and it's actually going to be I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be fun. The way that they've been talking about it is almost going to be similar to like a tournament style. So I mean, it's going to be fun. I think it's great right now. A lot of players off the court have expressed their condolences, their solidarity as well too. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens in July, because I believe they're resuming around the end of July, and see what may turn out. But I think right now a lot of us do need some form of entertainment, and it's basketball, right? And a lot of majority of the players are Black. And it's funny, I think we spoke about it yesterday, but my brother and my dad, what they were saying was well, if you want to take the whole, how white supremacist approach, right? Yeah. There's only 3 teams in the NBA that will have a full roster of white people. So when you put it in that perspective, it just shows up how much, Black people have played a huge influence in basketball in itself. Yeah.
Of course. So you're down for the season to resume. But what do you think when they do resume the season? What can they do instead of just playing Laura Ingraham? Oh my God! Instead of just shutting up and playing ball, as she told LeBron a few years ago, what can they do to make a stand and to show people, look, we're not standing for this?
Honestly, I think they've already stood up. They've already expressed their concerns. They've already expressed their solidarity. Take, for example, Kobe Bryant, when he when he was alive, God bless his soul, but you know, he wore "I Can't Breathe" t-shirts. A lot of NBA players did the exact same thing. So I think we're going to see that similar to the same thing. I think we just have to wait and see what happens. But a lot of players have been very open. A lot of players have been talking. LeBron's been talking a lot. So many, like Isaiah, so many players have been talking about it. Kuzma has been like very outspoken. A lot of players have been outspoken. So I think they are doing a lot in a sense where they could help. Obviously, like, who knows, like they could be donating more. So, you know, they have been outspoken. So yeah, we'll wait and see.
Well, speaking of outspoken leagues, and I had sent you a quote from a football player. He basically said the NFL, let's skip over to the NFL. The NFL is racist, flat out, period. I'm not calling Drew Brees a racist. That's not what I'm saying. But he did have a select choice of words that he later recanted and said, actually, that's not what I meant. What do you think the NFL needs to do? Because if your own players are saying, yes, this league is racist. NBA, I know. NBA, they have, like you said, Kobe and all the teams wore those "I Can't Breathe" shirts during warm-ups. Some of them even wore their warm-ups inside out to prove a point or to make a statement. So what's football going to do if your employees essentially know that you are racist?
Well, it's very almost ironic because you had even Colin Kaepernick's former team coming out and they're expressing solidarity, which it's a huge contradiction, right? Especially to what's going on with this movement right now, right? You do have a lot of players who are expressing themselves. And in regards to Drew Brees, it's like, you know, before you make a statement, like think about what you're about to say. You know what I mean? And we see a lot of companies now too, right? Where before they weren't making any statements, now they're making statements, and now people are holding themselves accountable, right? So, you know, of course, like he may be coming out of good intentions, but at the same time, too, like what you said was disrespectful. What you said was very hurtful, and now you look like an idiot because now, like, you know, you're taking back everything what you said, right? So I think it's like, you know, when you are some sort of public figure, right, per se, you really need to think about what you are saying, and predominantly your players around you are Black too as well. You know, so it was almost like you were tone deaf in the sense. And now that you're seeing that these huge reactions and people are coming out and now you want to come out and be like, oh, hey, like, you know, I didn't really mean what I said. And like, we've seen that so many times where people have been outspoken about so many different issues. And then when it catches heat, right, and they can't face it anymore, they're just like, oh, now I got to like retract because at the end of the day, like, you know, it's bad PR.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But I think it's not that it has to happen, but it is nice to not necessarily see him being called out, but it's nice. Like, he is being educated. Let's say that's truly his first statement was truly how he felt. He basically said, I don't really respect people who don't respect the flag or who kneel during the anthem. Maybe someone educated, maybe that teammate of his was like, yo, Drew, like, what are you talking about, man? This happened. So
sorry to cut you off, but we've seen that so many times with like other social media influencers when the whole George Floyd came out, and then I guess they're expressing the solidarity. They were making it about themselves per se, and then all of a sudden now they're retracting the next day saying like, but that's not what I meant. But for me, it's like you actually showed your true colors. You know what I mean? And it's one thing I've discussed with a lot of people, like you got to hold your friends or like, I guess your peers or like coworkers, etc. have to hold you accountable. You know what I mean? So I think like, especially now with such a sensitive topic, like just like watch what you say. You know what I mean?
What you say. I feel we were taught that when we were like elementary school, right?
Yeah, but I think like people just get heated and they just say whatever in the moment and then go from there type of thing.
Fair. So speaking of saying something in the heat of the moment, there was a video of J.R. Smith. Oh, this makes me my blood boil. But there was a video of J.R. Smith. It was him kicking someone in the face repeatedly. Why was he doing it? Because they had smashed his car window. My issue with this is you, in those instances, those people, celebrities, you can't, in the public eye, you cannot have that heat of the moment, the spur of the moment, I'm gonna do this. Like if you watch the video, and I do, it's hard to watch, but I urge everyone to just scan through it. He, like, the man is down on the ground, holding, covering his face, and J.R. Smith, who is a professional athlete who is making tons of money. So the windshield to him financially was peanuts. But to me, I got upset because I didn't appreciate, if we were to see a police officer do that, oh my God, done. Not to say the police officer is right, not to say JR is right. It's just funny that sometimes athletes or celebrities are held to a different tier, which I don't like. I don't like that he was kicking this man in the face. I get it, you're upset, but at that moment, man, like, look around you, like, look what is happening because of what, you know, the action that you're doing.
Well, I'm not condoning what he did. Like, I'm not, okay, but like at the same time, it's like, who's he gonna call? The cops? You know what I mean? Like, and we're always like, the way that I see it is like, we're always so quick to judge people in that instant, but like, what if it was like one of us? Like, what if someone was destroying your property? And especially when you are a Black male and the cops and Black men, Black women itself, there's a huge problem there. Like, who are you going to call, regardless of you being a famous athlete? So I think, like, for us, like, we're always so quick to just, you know, judge and say things. Mm-hmm. But at the same time too, like, I think if anybody was destroying your property, would you just stand there and just be like, okay, like, just destroy it? I wouldn't personally.
100%, I would not. That excessive. That was, yeah. No, 100%. I'd be pissed too. Honestly, that's. I hope that's not what it's coming off, or what it seems like I'm saying. It's, I guess, just the excessiveness of it. Really, it did upset me because, I mean, look around what's going on. That's not what you should be doing. That's not how you should be solving problems. Yeah. But that's my.
Hey, someone's doing shit to you. If someone's attacking your family member, like, for me, like, I'm just saying, like, I'm the type of person, like, if someone was doing that and like I know that the law is on my side, like, yo, like, you're getting a beat down. That's just personally, that's just me. Yeah. But I mean, you know, there's a time, like, yes, they are public figures, but at the same time, they're human beings, right? Yeah. So the only difference is that they make 10 times more money than all of us. But yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think, like, LeBron, the difference between, I mean, we all remember the Laura Ingraham comment that she made towards LeBron, shut up and dribble, shut up and shoot. But when Drew Brees said it, she said, yeah, everyone is allowed their own opinion. But obviously I want your quick thought on that, because I want to jump to the next topic. But who needs to educate her?
Okay, well, when you look at news stations have a stand, a political stance. You're looking at, she works for Fox News, I believe. And as we all know, Fox News is very right wing, right? So when you look at who they bring onto their shows, when you look at the rhetoric that they are spewing out, it's very right wing conservative, right? So she's obviously, guess who she's appealing to? Guess who are those people that are watching her, who are watching all the newscasters on her station? What demographic do you think that they're talking to, right? So you will obviously see the inconsistencies, right, in the news, right, when it comes to reporting, especially Black men and women, right? And the news always needs to have a spin. Like, I always say, like, take everything that you see in the news with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, like, they're only portraying one side of the story because they want to, you know, the news is there to, like, quote unquote, control people in a sense. You know, there's nobody that will sit there sometimes. Like, a lot of people take in the news as facts and as Bible. You know, there's not a lot of people that would sit there and be like, okay, like, what I'm seeing here, like, and start questioning it, right? So, I mean, just look at it. Fox News is very conservative. It's right wing. Guess the demographic of who they're appealing to, right? So that says it right there, you know?
Okay, cool. I agree with that. I think probably the main thing is people just need to be educated. But let's jump to the next topic. I wanted to bring this up between you and I specifically because we are both biracial. We spoke yesterday for about an hour talking about our honestly like our feelings, how we've been affected by being biracial, what Black Lives Matter, what the movement means to us being biracial. So for me, I'm going to start with me and my own experience. A lot of people, I just like to naive, let's say naive people. They'll be like, "What's your background?" I say, "Oh, I'm Jamaican, I'm Irish, I'm Canadian." They're like, "What? You're not Black?" And I'm like, Veronica, don't. And it goes back to what I was saying before. Educate them. You're right. I'm not. My dad is light skinned, but he is 100% from Jamaica, born in Kingston. Like, that's it. You asked my background. Did you ask me if I were Black? No. But it has gotten to me over the years. I remember one time I wanted to walk in the Black Lives Matter with Black Lives Matter in the Pride Parade, and I wasn't accepted, I'm gonna say, and I could only assume, I don't know, I would love for the whoever is in charge now to reach out to me so we can communicate and sort this out, but I would love to know why I wasn't accepted to walk with them. I could only imagine it was because I looked Caucasian. So I mean, and there's things like that that happen to me all the time. Sometimes I don't know, who do I belong with? Do I belong with the Black community or the white community? Like and I know there's a lot of biracial people out there who feel similar to me. You are biracial. What is your background? And tell me how you get through it, or how you overcome, your feelings getting hurt or being insulted, or talk to me.
Yeah. Okay. So my father, his mother is Afro-Caribbean and his dad is Chinese. On my mother's side, she is Venezuelan, Portuguese, and Spanish. So Spanish from Spain, right? But I guess people have known me, and just even looking at pictures of myself, I could pass off as Asian. Growing up, a lot of people have thought that I was either Filipino, like full Filipino, Malaysian, I've gotten Cambodian, I've gotten Thai, growing up. Or some people, if they know, they would ask me if I'm half Chinese, because they either have like someone in their family who's also half Asian too, right? But growing up, what my dad did was that he really taught my brother and I, right, a lot about like each and every background that we came from, right? So he really sat there and he really educated, like, how the Chinese came to the Caribbean, right? Because that plays a huge part, the Afro-Caribbean side too, right? The whole point of like, I don't know if there's any Caribbean people here, but the day before Carnival or Caravana, people go to something called Juve, right? Which is where they stay up really late and they basically get painted on, et cetera, right? But when we're talking about like back then, like in like the Trinidadian culture, Juve actually means daybreak. And what daybreak, and during that time, the slaves, when they were emancipated, what they ended up doing was they ended up dressing up in costumes and mimicking their slave masters, right? So that was the whole point of it. So if you go back down to Trinidad and you play Juve, right, you will see different cultural costumes. You will see people dressing up, etc., right, doing the exact same thing. So for me, I went down to Trinidad a few years and I got to experience that, and it was really, really nice to. It was really, really nice to see, because I think what happens with a lot of Caribbean kids is we don't really know a lot about our culture at the same time. We only know like surface level things. So for me, that was also very important. Also too, my dad talked about the Spanish Inquisition, right? And how that dealt with colonization, right? And as we know, like a lot of Latin American countries, the whole continent of Africa, certain countries in Asia too, they were all colonized as well, right? So my dad really did his best to really educate us on like our culture, and then pretty much on a worldview, right? What was, I guess, shocking too is that he told my brother, right? My brother is much darker than me. He's much darker to me, but he told us that we would probably have a different experience growing up because of our skin color, right? And one prime example was that my brother played basketball, and this is when he first started off, and people would go to my mom and be like, oh, like who's your son, right?
Yeah.
She'd be like, oh, like the little brown boy playing. And then they would look at her, and then they would look at me and be like, oh, so does he have another father? Like, is he adopted? Right? And my mom's Hispanic. And like, if you guys know, if anybody who's watching here who knows my mom, like my mom like will cuss you out, right?
Yeah.
So I think she really just tried her best to just like, you know, kind of like play it off. But she would come home and she would complain to my dad, you know, and she'd be so upset. And I would be upset too, because I'm like, this is my brother. You know what I mean? Like, yes, like we may be a different skin color, but like, this is my brother, like this is my blood. And like, I think for any parent to hear that and to experience that, like that was just, it's very hurtful, you know? And just like, even like certain things too, like, you know, my brother getting stopped by cops, right? And like his experience too with it. I've gotten stopped by the cops, and I've honestly lied through my teeth, and I've got let go like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my brother has gotten a hard time from the cops too. And like my mom and dad are just like, you know, like just listen to the cops, just, you know, like be calm, etc. and whatnot. And you see that disparity, right? And it's almost very, very hurtful. You know what I mean?
Of course, it must be. What I love about what you just said and your dad is he told you guys from young, and I think that's where it starts. I mean, he told you about your heritage. He told you about your culture. Both your parents. They explained things to you, which I think a lot of us are missing in today's world, in today's society. It's you kind of just I didn't know about Juve, to be honest.
A lot of people don't. Like a lot of Caribbean people really don't. But I mean, like he always said that knowledge is power, right? And more like, and he really taught us how to navigate in this world. And when we hear these discussions of is it too young to talk about gun violence? Is it too young to talk about race, right? I don't think it's ever too young, right?
No,
because
totally
my dad always said, the more knowledge you know, the more power you have, right? And he always stressed that to us. You know what I mean? Like always question things, right? Never take things as face value. Like always, like he preaches that to us till this day. I think anybody who knows my dad, like he's probably one of the most intelligent people that I know, right? And he really taught us how to really navigate that through life, right? But I think he also knew that, you know, when you are raising Black children, when you are raising a Black female too as well, right? It's going to be hard for you to navigate because you not only being colored, but also you're female, as we know. Like he even said, he's like, we live in a man's world. And he's like, you're going to have to learn how to navigate in a man's world. This is my father telling me this at 5 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, it was always about like empowering, right? Which I thank him so much to this day. You know, I can't say if anybody else has had that experience, you know, but I must say it's like, I don't think it's ever too young to talk about difficult topics. Like at a young age, I knew what genocide was. Like I knew about all these difficult topics where parents are having a hard time talking to their kids, and the news are having these segments like how to talk to your kids about war, how to talk to your kids about gun violence. Like
just
at a young age, I was just really like close to that because he felt that, you know what, when you are growing up in this world, it's pretty, but it's also very ugly at the same time. You know, he wasn't really sugarcoating it. My mom, on the other hand, you know, she was just like, you know, you got to settle down. But he's like, no, he's like, they need to know, you know, they need to know because at the same time, like they need to know how to navigate. So yeah, growing up, like I honestly, like I thank them. My mom's a little bit more oblivious when it comes to things, I have to admit. And I was talking to
so much.
Sorry?
They just love us so much.
They do. But even like from my mom's Spanish side, like for example, I have cousins from Spain, and I also have cousins from Venezuela, and they would look down at my cousins from Venezuela because they're a little bit darker, or they speak Spanish a little bit more colloquial, right? So it's just crazy. Like, we're all the same family, but at the same time too, like they're bringing in, like, you know, pretenses that they've learned growing up, right? Which is very negative. And then, like, when they're dealing with my family, who are both speaking Spanish, right? They're not seeing eye to eye because of, like, when we look at it on the broader things, it comes down to like colonialism and the whole colorism thing. So, yeah.
Speaking of, you had mentioned, I mean, we need to let our children know what's happening in the world. It's a beautiful world, but yeah, it's a shitty one too sometimes. I want your opinion. I'm gonna give the definition of looting, because obviously looting is happening all over the state. There was a parade today in Toronto, and all the windows were boarded up just in case, you know, didn't give anyone a chance to loot or break windows. But let me define it quickly. So looting, also referred to as sacking, ransacking, plundering, and pillaging, is the indiscriminate taking of goods. I want to know, Sid, your thoughts on looting. My thought, I'm not gonna lie, or after our conversation yesterday, I got educated and I heard someone else's side to it, and what they said was, look, Veronica, I before yesterday, I didn't agree with looting. No, I don't like it. I don't think it's necessary. But I was educated, and the person I was speaking to said, no, Veronica, like, this is that the Black community is showing everyone, like, we're done. We are done. This is, I mean, we can't do anymore. We can't ask you politely, Colin Kaepernick. We can't donate X amount of money. Like, this is all we can do, because George Floyd should not have died. Breonna Taylor, whose birthday is today, happy birthday, God bless her. She was sleeping. She shouldn't have died. The cops were at the wrong house. But I want to know your opinion on looting, and do you think that it is beneficial? Do you think maybe there's another way to go about it, or you think it's exactly what is deserved or expected?
Well, when you talk about looting, like, look at museums across the world. Where do you think those artifacts came from? Do you think they literally just walked up there and just like, hey, by the way, we're gonna borrow this and put it in a museum? Like, when you look at majority of the things that are in museums right now to this day, it's because of looting, right? If you want to look at it on a grand scale of things, right? But like, in regards to the whole protesting, like, you can't really tell people how to protest. I think Trevor Noah, you know, he said it best, right? You know, discussing, like, you can't tell Black people how to protest, right? How to act right now, you know? Right. In that, and within the news, and as you see on Twitter as well too, you know, there are different factions of people out there that are taking advantage of this, right? And they are technically looting for their own advantages, right? So I mean, like, as I said, like, the media always has its spin, and the media will always find a way to, like, detract from what the main focus is, right? So there's so many people on Twitter that you see that are going like, hey, by the way, like, there's a bunch of like other people from coming out of town who are breaking into things, right? It's also known too, right, that government agents, right? Like, it's been known, it's in history, where they're the ones that are actually stirring up shit. They're the ones that are actually breaking into things. They're the ones doing all these things too. So as I said, like, everything that we see on the news has a specific story to tell, a specific spin per se, right? And when you look at social media, right, when you look on Twitter, when you look on Instagram, people are telling a completely different story too, right? So as I said, like, when it comes to like looting, like, you are going to have those people that are going to take advantage of the situation at hand, right? But in the grand scheme of things too, you want to look at that at the end of the day, people are protesting for you know, equality, right? They are protesting against police brutality, and I think that's the main focus.
And you know what? And not to say the looting is the only reason as to why. Obviously, the protesting, and obviously cities and states demanding that their government officials step the F up. Like LA, the mayor defunded the police department. I believe it was 150 mil. that is beautiful. Now, it's not to say some police officers didn't deserve it. Let's be clear. Let's be real. Not all police officers are the ones that we see on video, right? There are some good ones out there, as there are some good people, bad people. But hey, man, shit needs to happen. Stuff needs to happen in order to change. And I think this has happened before. Let's be real. Let's look back in the history books. It's happened. But there is something different about this one. And I think they're going to get a lot of progress. And I think it's not going to be done anytime soon. Although the media may go away, although the protests may stop, I see this making a change. I see this being sit in our grandchildren's history books, which I love. It's very unfortunate that so many Black people and Black men and that had to die in order for this to happen. It is obviously very tragic, and I wish it could happen without them, using their lives for that. But at this moment, I'm happy with the way it's going. I'm happy that the government's stepping up. I'm happy that a lot of people are like, yo, no, we're not doing this anymore. Like the lineups to the voting polls were every time I look on the TV or the internet, they're around the corner, which is beautiful. Because I was sure before even COVID started, I was sure Trump was going to be in another term. I'm not so sure anymore, which is super, super lovely.
I hate to be pessimistic, but like, we're just in when it comes to Trump, right? We're just in the beginning stages of things, right? And what a lot of people don't know is that there's a lot of shit like that's much deeper than what's happening in the United States, right? In governments in itself, So this is like a conversation I always have with my dad, but to me, I feel like a lot of figures are just puppeteers, right? In a grand scheme of things, right? That's just me. But I mean, like a lot of people now, I think are looking for change, and I'm really, really happy to see like, the support. I've had people message me. A lot of people are now using, their social media to an advantage, right? As well as discussing such issues, right? But now it's like, we got to hold everyone accountable. I always say like racism and inequality is not a fad. It's not a brand new pair of jeans that you just wear like for one day, and then all of a sudden in 6 months, you're going to switch it to another pair of jeans, right? This has been happening for like hundreds of years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't say like something that really bothers me, but I think it's like a lot of people were living in a very huge comfort zone, right? In a huge bubble. And then after last week, it's like that bubble actually just popped, right? And now everyone is just like sort of like embracing one up. But for me, it's just like, okay, like it's great now, but like what's going to be happening within the next week? What's going to be happening within the next, next month? What's going to be happening in 6 months? What's going to be happening in a year and going forward?
10 years.
Even companies now, they're like forking up millions of dollars, but it's like, bro, like this whole entire time, right? Shit's been hitting the fan, right?
Yeah.
It's not brand new. It's not. And then now it's great. It's great to see, right? But at the end of the day, these companies damn well know that Black people spend a shit ton of money, and they don't want to lose that. They don't want to lose that. They don't want to lose money. Companies do not want to lose money, period. Especially during COVID, right? So I just want to see like what else they're going to do. Because
you mean like, let's say once it settles, once the dust settles, let's say, and
what are you doing for now? Like, why are companies realizing that they need to hire more Black people, or they have a lack of diversity in their company? So this whole entire time you had a company, you didn't realize that you had a lack of diversity.
Yeah,
that to me does not make any sense. Why should we now hold why are we holding companies now accountable for diversity? That to me is such a very like backward set of thinking,
Oh, of course.
So it's like how genuine are they? So that's what I'm saying. Like, we just have to wait. I'm going to wait like a few months, maybe a year, just to see, because everyone's just putting up a nice clown face right now, you know?
It is funny right now. It's funny you say that, Sid, because Hassan Minaj, he real quick before we jump to the next topic, he said, this fake woke we do on IG dies in a week. I sure as heck hope not, but his point was, let's not let it die in a week. Let's continue. Let's like do long-lasting solutions. And you said something yesterday. You said something along the lines, let's find a prevention rather than a solution. Like, why are we waiting for this to happen and then solve the problem? Right? Why don't we just prevent it from happening? Why don't we, I think it's 6 months in the States, some states, to become a police officer. That's it. Are you kidding me?
But you have to look at like, you just have to look at like America in itself. It's like systemic racism at its finest, right? When you look at everything from like the criminal and justice system, right? American prisons are a money-making business, right? When you look at it, they are privatized, right? So you need people to fill up the prisons. So what are you going to do, right? It's been known, right? And it's a sad reality, but it's known. You know what I mean? So like Rome wasn't built in one day. Like there's just a lot that needs to get done, right? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I don't know if there's a solution, like a solution right now, but hopefully with whatever's happening, that's actually going to eventually lead. Like, so it's changing the judges. Like, look at the judge. Look at how many, right? Look at how many cases, right, of men being thrown to jail who have not done any sort of criminal activity, nothing, right? Who've been wrongfully accused, right? Who've been thrown into jail, right? Like, we have to look at the judges, right? We got to look at the prosecutors. We got to look at the DAs, right? You got to look at, there's so many different things that we have to look at in order for things to change, right? You got to look at your mayors, right? There's just so many things that need to change, right? When you look at the grand scheme of things, and it's a lot.
Oh God, yeah. It's,
you know,
keep that in your mind, because we're going to loop back to it after this. But next, I do want to talk about rap music. I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. I love rap music. I do. I enjoy it. Not all songs, but some songs. But the point I bring this up, and I would love your opinion, because these rappers, right? They rap about killing people, and I got a 9 mil, and I'm gonna shoot you in front of your mother's house, whatever it may be. And then ironically, the same thing they're rapping about, unfortunately, happens to them. So to me, glorifying guns, and I had a post about this last week. I had a cap gun. I was posing for a photo on a cap gun. And then looking back, it was 4 years ago. I'm like, Veronica, why did you do that? And looking deep enough, it was probably because it looked cool, right? So I want to know, can we somehow change the music industry? Like, I know Jay-Z, I know Jay-Z, I know all these rappers, they sing about the past in their life. But so does J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar, but they aren't promoting violence or glorifying guns. And I have a really, really big issue with that. But I know you also have a really good take on that. So tell us what your thoughts are, and as to why it may not change.
Well, rap is a form of rap is a form of expression, right? And we see this all the time with journalists. You know, they take one lyric of any rapper, right? Mm-hmm. They just dissect it, right? And they come up with some weird meaning. But also, you got to look at the journalists themselves too, and like who's writing it. And majority of the time, it's not a Black person. It's not a POC at all. It's usually.
But what about me? I looked at the lyrics. I know what they're saying.
But that's a product of their environment at the end of the day. Like, who's to say that a rapper talking about shooting people, right, gets his foot in the door and like changes his mind? We see that all the time. You know what I mean? Like, that's their reality at the end of the day. What are they going to talk about? You know what I mean? Like you had NWA talking about fuck the police. Like you had all these different things, right? You know, because that was the reality that they lived in. What to me, it's like, what are they supposed to talk about? They're not these wannabe rappers, right? And I'm not going to say who, but like these rappers out here who are just talking about gangbanging and shit, right? But they're hiding behind like mons, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, it's a product of their environment. And at the end of the day, like, who am I to say like anything? And I think I showed you that TED talk yesterday, right?
Yeah.
That's what the industry thrives for. You know, that's what makes them money. And we saw the prime example with Rick Ross, right? Mm-hmm. He was signed, he had a deal with Reebok, and he had a lyric about that insinuated something with like rape or date rape. And people were protesting, right? And then he got dropped. You know what I mean? So anything that, you know, exhibits like gun violence, etc. In the TED talk, they said that they would like it because that's what make them money, which is very, very thick. You know what I mean? But for me, it's like at the end of the day, like these guys are talking about what's a reality for them. So what else are they going to talk about? You know, and how do we not know that, you know, they get their foot in the door and they actually change, like, you know, their message, right? We don't know, like, you know what I'm trying to say? Right. And so
do you think that's the only thing they can speak on though? Like, is it their
I mean, that's a choice. That's a personal choice, right? Yeah. That's a choice, but I feel like that's what they've been living and that's what they know, right? Mm-hmm. So if they want to talk about something else, they can, but that's their choice. But sometimes at the end of the day too, you got to look at labels, and labels will tell you like, hey, like in order to sell records, like this is what we want you to talk about, right. You know?
So in that instance, what if record labels like I know Warner Music, they donate 100 million to social justice organizations. What if like top music producers said something along the lines like, just hear me out. I don't know. But like, hey, you can't mention. You're gonna have to find another way to express how you feel rather than you getting upset. Or I just don't like how they glorify guns and violence. That I think teaches our children and our grandchildren and generations to come that it's the wrong idea. Like that's just my personal issue with it. I understand what you said about NWA and F the police, and then Snoop Dogg has also had some questionable song lyric choices, and as have a lot of rappers or even singers, or artists, sorry. I just think there has to be another way to sell records rather than glorifying guns and violence.
It's a personal preference. That's just me.
Yeah.
Right? That's just me. You know? So Jay-Z's first album, Nas, they talked about the same lifestyle, talked about selling bricks, right? But as you see them, you know, progress, right, in their craft, you know, they did mention like different things. So that's why, you know, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, they took a different approach too, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's a preference, and like I don't think we should just like you know, shit on somebody and like, you know, completely. Yes, it's wrong at the same time, but you do have a lot of people in the music industry that are looking for that, and then like it is going to sell.
Well, and I guess it goes to what you were saying before, where it's if music, let's say producers are looking for that, or the higher ups in the music industry, it's much like, let's say, the police force or what's happening down south, right? Is to make the top man happy.
Well, yeah, they're making money. Like, just watch that TED talk. Like he blatantly says it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's wrong, but when with record companies, at the end of the day, like what do they want to make? They want to make money.
Yeah.
You know, it's sad, but like hell, like that's the society that we live in. Like people just want to make money at the end of the day.
Money makes them go out.
You know?
Yeah. Sid, I want to end this conversation by asking, what do you think the solution to all of this is? I'm watching the TV right now. People are marching in Toronto. People are marching in Ottawa. Mark Saunders, he dropped to one knee while meeting with protesters today, which is lovely. You see the Flint Police Department doing that. You see the Boca Raton Police Department, as many others do as well. But what do you think the solution to all this is? Where does it start?
It's complicated,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, it's really just breaking down systemic racism, like, which as we know, it's very, very deeply embedded, right? And it's very, very, very extremely complicated, right? But I think like for us, like now and like what we're doing is a lot of us are now very much aware, and it's, you know, holding each other extremely accountable, right? And, you know, and having those difficult conversations. And I think accountability is one thing where we can start seeing change. And change doesn't have to be like, yes, change is great at a very governmental like level, like, you know, signing petitions, you know, whether that's you marching and protesting, etc., right? You know, going out and voting as well too, right? That's also very important. But as well as just having these conversations with people, you know, with everyday people, and, you know, holding your workforce accountable too.
Yeah.
You know, that's also very difficult. If you've noticed that there's no diversity in your work, right? You are doing small things to hold them accountable. And I think accountability, right, on many different levels, right? Calling people out, you know, if you have a racist family member, like calling them out, right? If you have a friend who's saying the N-word, be like, yo, like, don't say that, you know? So all those like little things, right? I know they're very, very small, but at the same time too, they will push towards a change, right? And also like voting is very important because, you know, like we have quote unquote some control of like who we place in power, right? And holding them accountable too, and putting them under pressure. You know, you got to put these people under pressure, you know?
And also bigger consequences, right?
Well, yeah, like look at the United States right now. But like people always say, like, look at the United States, but look at Canada right now. Like indigenous people are at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At the end of the day, right? So at the same time too, like we have to hold our government accountable because indigenous people are getting shit on all the time. There is systemic racism here in Canada too, right? So we ourselves, like, yes, we have to start holding people accountable at many different levels, you know, instead of being like reactive, we have to be proactive.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
So as I said, it's complicated, yes, but at the same time too, like the little things that I see people doing, I see like a lot of us in like a lot of like group chats, a lot of Facebook, a lot of Instagram chats and whatnot, just discussing what's happening now, right? I think it's great because it's allowing people to have an outlet to speak out. It's allowing people to, you know, really find out information about what's going on. And I think especially right now, like, yes, you know, racism is such a very extremely hard thing to talk about, especially if you haven't experienced it like yourself, or you haven't been like a Black person, etc. But the way that I see it is that, you know, when I have friends who are coming to me, who are asking me questions, right, who want to know, right, I'm sitting there, I'm listening to them with compassion, you know. If they do say something like a word or something that may be triggering to me, like, hey, listen, like, you may not want to use this word, and I'll tell them why, you know. And then from there, we're building that sort of conversation. We are embracing them because we don't want people to go into hiding because they're afraid of, like, they might say something wrong, and then all of a sudden they have to creep back because they're like, oh my God, like, I had this experience with one person and like they were like yelling at me. At this point, like, in order to form like, you know, allyships and whatnot, we really need to, like, I'm just coming from a place of compassion, I'm coming from a place from empathy. So I'm all for, like, you know, just really listening to people and just, you know, having these sort of conversations, because I think it's great. And I think that's a start. And all the petitioning that I see, and and everyone, I have friends who are holding their companies accountable as well too. So I think that's all a start for a better cause.
Awesome. I agree. I'm seeing all over Twitter, like how many people are, some guy said, he said, pray for my aunt. She's not dead. She's just a racist. And like people are not only holding their companies accountable, but people are losing family members because they're like, I can't agree with you. I cannot sit here at Christmas dinner and listen to you say this anymore. So it's super unfortunate, but hey, like you said, that's what it takes. You got to speak up, you got to speak out, and you got to educate people, which I think is, for me, the solution for me is just not just, but education is huge. Educate that this isn't the first time this is happening. Educate yourself as to why this is happening. How do we fix it? You said here in Canada, we are not much better. And that is for a whole nother discussion that we will 100% have.
We're really not, but it's, it's educating ourselves. And I see a lot of things online where Black people are saying, well, white people and other POCs, like, educate yourself. Okay, yeah, that's one point. But at the same time too, it's like, I think having just a natural discussion with other people who are Black, I think that is also very important as well too, because you are learning. Like, not a lot of people, like, I don't know. I'm also looking at it from like a managerial perspective too. Like, not a lot of people are going to be going to the library or going online and like wanting to read like a 1,500 page on systemic racism. Like, a lot of people are not going to sit there and do that. There's documentaries, right?
Sorry, that's not what I meant. Let me.
Oh, no.
Educate as in like I am educating you now and you are educating me. So sorry. Like, I guess just converse as well as educate.
Conversing, but I've seen some posts where people are like, oh, like, don't come to me, and like, if you like, it's not me who I should be educating, right? And for me, I think yes, to an extent, right? Because I think Black people, just within like the media, etc., right, we already know how it is. But at the same time too, it's like, if I've had friends where they've come to me as like, hey, like, I know about this, or a family member said this, like, what can I do in this situation? I'm not going to back down on them and be like, okay, well, go read a book on racism, right? Go read a book about like colonization. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to embrace what they're saying and just walk them through it and just be like, hey, listen, you know what? You may want to go read this book. You may want to go watch this documentary. You may want to watch this YouTube channel. You may want to do this in order to educate yourself. Like, hey, listen, like, if you have any questions or if you want to talk about anything else, like, come talk to me again. Like, I'm not just going to like dash you away. Right, unless you're saying something extremely ignorant, then yeah, like, I'm going to call you out. I'm going to block you and not talk to you again. Like, I'm going to turn out. But I haven't experienced that as yet. But that's just my point of view. As I said, everybody wants to deal with things much differently, and like, that's them. But for me, I'm coming out of a place of understanding and like just like empathy. I feel it. Like, I have friends who are like they're just complete empaths because they just don't know what to do, and like, I'm not going to shame them for that. So yeah.
I love it. I love this conversation. Again, we could go on for another hour, but I'm gonna let you go. Oh, there she is.
I know, it's so dark.
Your skin is glowing. No, stay there. I want to thank you, Sid, though. I mean, this isn't easy to talk about. It's not. It's a beautiful thing to talk about. We do need to, but I do want to thank you for coming on. You are super brave, and I love exploring these situations and these conversations with you. NBA season is starting tentatively July 31st. We'll keep you guys updated with that. Make sure you guys, on Monday, I'm going to be having my good friend Curtis Harmont on the V Spot Speaks Up, and you're definitely not going to want to miss it. He got a lot to say, and he's also quite knowledgeable. So, Sid, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Of course, and we'll definitely, I mean, conversation's not done, right? This, I hope it continues for the next ever. I hope it doesn't just, settle down and we're done. But
no, like, honestly, the conversation is not done, and That's what it's all about right now. It's having the conversations, and we, like, right now, like, everybody may be experiencing, you know, pain much differently. Everybody may be experiencing things much differently, but at the same time too, like, we can't expect change unless we have these difficult conversations.
Right.
We can't expect people to know everything, you know, as I said. And I know it's very tiresome, especially for Black people, and they feel like they have to explain themselves over and over again. But at the same time too, it's like, if we really want to create allies, if we really want to create people by our side, we really extremely need to embrace these people when we're ready, when you're personally ready. Some people may not be ready as yet, but like, if you are ready, you know, reach out to people, check on your friends, you know, check on them. You know, just ask them like a simple thing, like, hey, are you doing okay? If they say no, be like, okay, like, leave them, let it go, right? But at the same time too, if you do experience somebody who's actually coming out and be like, listen, you know, I watched this documentary about, you know,
What is it?
Sorry?
Sorry, you mentioned a documentary to me before. What was it, on Netflix?
There's so many. There's like the 13th.
13th, that was the one you were, yeah. Sorry.
Like, if anybody comes to you like, hey, listen, like, I found this out, or I have an idea to start an organization, or I have a GoFundMe page, just something like that. Like, just hear them out, you know, educate them as best as you can, and then start from there. And I think that's what we need to be doing. And we shouldn't be shitting on people for not having all the facts. Like, we ourselves do most Jamaicans know their history? Do most Trinidadians know their history? Do most Africans know their history?
Yeah. Do most Canadians know their
history? So at the same time too, like, we ourselves have a lot of work to do, right? So I don't think it's a good time for us to be pointing fingers and just being like, okay, well, you know, go grab a history book out there and just go educate yourself right now. I don't think that's the right way to do things, especially to create allies. So that's just my POV.
That's it. We on what? Well, we support the Black community everywhere, especially here in Canada, in Toronto. We are with you guys. We, like you said, Sid, we are allies. We doesn't end here. So we're definitely have more conversations. Yeah.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Everyone for joining. And guys, don't forget, the V Spot Speaks Up. We'll be back on Monday with Curtis. Catch you guys there.